Well, Donald Trump says he will not rejoin Twitter, I should say, even if Elon Musk changes the policies and the president can come back on. He says he's committed to his new social media endeavors, and he's not coming back to Twitter. I don't know. What do you think about that, Kim? I cocould easily see Trump coming back anyway. It's not like he's committed to that promise. And I kind of think he probably would, but because hasn't he complained constantly that he just loves Twitter and wants to be back on Twitter? My understanding is that he really wants to be back on Twitter.
I would imagine he wants to be back on Twitter because it definitely puts him in the public spotlight more. I mean, I don't even know what the guy is up to anymore. You know, I knew what he was up to because he was constantly on Twitter, and then that was being reported on. And since he's been banned from all of these different sites, and I don't even know where to get his messages. I guess if I were to sign up for his newsletter or something, maybe I would start getting more information about where the guy is.
Though.
Well, because they're emailed to you, or where?
Well, they're usually posted on Twitter immediately. I mean, that's the funny, Trump doesn't have the ability to tweet himself, but if he says anything, you hear about it on Twitter or on the news or anywhere else.
I don't ever see them, so I think I must not follow enough right-wing people, Republicans, in order to see those, because of course Democrats are not going to be probably posting those. Yeah, so I never see them. So I need to start following all the people you follow so that I can start seeing these things. But, I think two things here for Donald Trump and Twitter. One, I think it's, definitely he's got his Truth Social. I don't even know what's going on with Truth Social. I signed up for it, I think, when it was in waiting. You sign up and, in 2 months we're releasing Truth Social or something. I think they did launch. I never heard anything about it. I don't know how to even get on it. Are you on it? Are you familiar with it?
No, it sounds like it's going just as well as Trump University
CNN
or something.
Right.
Or CNN Plus. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's really taking the world by storm.
That's right. So I don't think Truth Social is going anywhere. But I also think he has a reason to stay off Twitter for reasons you've mentioned already, which is that he might, maybe strategists around him are saying, look, you're better off not on Twitter. Your image is actually increasing. People are having fonder memories of you because it's out of sight, out of mind. And then we all kind of do this, right? When we look back with a little bit more nostalgia, things start to get sugar-coated a little bit. And so when we're not hearing from him every day with his Twitter thumbs, then people look back and say, oh, I miss Trump. He did, X, Y, Z, kind of forgetting all of the bad. And so if he were to then go back out there with Twitter every day in our faces saying crazy, wild things, it might turn off a lot of people. So maybe he's getting maybe he's actually finally taking some strategy advice.
And it gives the Democrats their missing piece of the puzzle. They have an enthusiasm gap. They're not enthusiastic about restoring Democrats to power. And the one thing it's as true for their mobilization efforts as it is for CNN ratings, right? They need Trump. They need Trump as their boogeyman.
Yeah.
So the quieter he is, the more poorly that goes. Now, the idea of him actually listening to advisors and taking their advice, who say maybe you should just not tweet for a while, is hard to. But maybe you're right. Maybe he is taking that to heart, or maybe it's no, you insulted me by taking me off. I'm not gonna frequent this company anymore. But even though it's a different management.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like that. I don't think he's like a vindictive. I think he forgets too quick, and he's too self-absorbed and he's like, I can be in the public spotlight. I would think, though, it is absolutely better for him to stay away. And you bring up really great reasons just to keep harming Democrats, if that's what the Republican agenda and Trump's agenda is. If he wants, revenge on Democrats and CNN and all of them, the best way to do it is to not give them any fodder, right? Don't give them any of this, because they'll just go, CNN's ratings will increase as soon as Trump's back on Twitter. Does he really want that?
Right. That's the main reason I always thought the idea that social media is only, working in unison in order to help Democrats. Obviously, certain people who work for the companies prefer Democrats, and they do various things that I think were wrong, or maybe helped them, or were biased against the right, the Hunter Biden laptop story, other things. But they're clearly not giving it their absolute all, because if they were, they would put Trump back on the platform, because that would remind Democrats what they're fighting against. and they decided not to do that. They're more motivated, I think. They don't want to be yelled at by the mainstream media, or being accused of causing harassment or misinformation or causing violence. So even if those accusations are not very well thought out, they're just like, okay, no, we hear you. We're not doing that. We're sorry. Please don't regulate us. Is I think they're kind of operating.
Here's Trump's actual statement. He made this to Fox News. He says, "I'm not going on Twitter. I'm going to stay on Truth. I hope Elon buys Twitter because he'll make improvements to it and he's a good man. But I'm going to be staying on Truth." But again, I don't know anything about Truth. I know that there was this big overarching, they were going to do something like Twitter. They were then going to do something. I thought the other aspects of Truth were more interesting. They were going to try to do something to compete with like Netflix, and then something to compete with like Amazon cloud services. They were going to, and I thought that was more interesting, because if you really want to defeat the censorship game, then you need to own the infrastructure. You can't just have the website. I thought actually Elon, I get he wants to buy Twitter. He bought Twitter. But I actually thought what he should have done was instead create a service to combat Amazon, their web hosting service, because they're kicking people off. And also I thought he should launch a phone to compete with Apple's iPhone, and then have an app store, and then also, not kick people off. Because that was, I think when we saw Parler, for example, try to rise up, and they were doing actually a really great job of rising up, they then were booted from Amazon. They then were booted off of iPhones, at the Apple Store. And I felt like that was actually the space. If somebody really wants to make change, they would need to develop, and somebody like Elon Musk would have the ability and the money and the the ability to create the infrastructure to do this, would be to then create those underlying infrastructure to allow people a space to build their own platforms and have them available to the people. So, which is what I think Trump, when I looked at the Truth Social, or the Truth, what do they call, the whole thing is called something different. Truth something. And that they had like a branching out, and Truth Social was one aspect of it. And then there were like 4 other aspects. And I thought that was actually a pretty good strategy. So I'm curious how far he's going with that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. No, I agree with you though. The hosting kind of the infrastructure is what is really concerning. Having that only in the hands of people who are more hostile to a range of viewpoints, or are going to punish just one comedy. Because I get why they were upset with Parler, because of there was like actual extremists being organized there, but it was also being organized on Facebook, and Facebook didn't get kicked out of the App Store. Like everything you could say, sure, but then be fair about it, because this is happening on every social media platform right now. It is not at all unique to Parler. I think Parler, was maybe not prepared for what was going to happen there, but you could find more of it because the other sites were bigger, so there was more bad behavior going on Facebook. So that was what felt pretty crooked about that, even if there was nothing technically illegal about it.
I found it's called Trump Media and Technology Group. That's the overarching company. Truth Social is one of the little arms of this. And remember, this is now headed up by Devin Nunes. Is that right? Isn't he the CEO?
Yeah.
Of TMTG Media, apparently, is the company. So we'll see if they're. But yeah, I think Donald Trump I think he'll eventually cave and come back to Twitter, and he'll start off slow, like, I'm here, but I'm only here like once a week, kind of a thing. I'm only going to tweet.
But the thing about like Nunes is a little bit hypocritical on this stuff, because didn't he sue? There was a parody Twitter account that Republican strategist Liz Mayer created for him, and he like sued her for this parody account. So I don't want to hear from him that he's this whole free speech guy. Like, he sued to have an account that was making fun of him taken down. He's for like hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a little so many of the. And that's going to be interesting to see as this Elon Musk situation develops, and the right's kind of riding high right now. But a lot of it, it's easy to say, there shouldn't be censorship of my guys, my viewpoints or whatever. That means people make fun of you. You're supposed to allow that too. So we'll have to see. Yeah, there's a little bit of hypocrisy, I think.
All right, but place your bet. You think Trump goes back to Twitter? Yes or no?
Oh,
how much money?
if Twitter lets Trump back on, I think that, yes, I think he will reappear. Absolutely.
I think I think Elon's definitely going to allow him back on.
Well, that is maybe tricky. I mean, we don't, like, Elon is a very mercurial figure, right? He's bought Twitter. He could sit down with them and they could explain, okay, here's how it works and here's why we make the decisions we make. And he might say, yeah, okay, I don't want to change that much. Like, I think that's more likely than, or he just moves on to some other project. He's got a lot. You think he's going to designate 24 hours? He's just going to be all about Twitter? I mean, I'm not even sure I want that. The guy wants us to colonize Mars. Twitter is a less important goal than that. Please don't. Please, Elon, don't spend too much of your time trying to fix Twitter. I would like it if it was different, but take us to Mars. That's the more important civilizational goal.
I don't know. There's nothing appealing to me about moving to Mars. I mean, no matter how bad the Earth's climate gets, I don't see how it could be worse than Mars's climate. But I think if Elon does not reinstate Trump's account pretty much right away, everybody will call him out as a hypocrite. He has to do it. It's like the first thing he has to do in order to establish himself as a free speech platform. Within reason. Nobody's thinking Twitter's going to become full-on free speech, say whatever you want.
Right.
Within reason, some regulation.
Do you think he's going to restore like Alex Jones' account?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think he would have to if he's going to be and Milo Yiannopoulos and who else has been banned off of Twitter? Lots of people. I think all of them will have to get restored unless they specifically called for the violence of harming somebody. Actually said, let's all get together and do something really horrible to this person. That, I think, is when, maybe he would say, okay, I can't put that person back on. But just their ideas and saying their ideas lead to people to behave a certain way. I don't know if you can really, I mean, we'll see what he does, but I think he'd have to start restoring accounts.
Well, we'll have to see. We will be paying attention to this, certainly, very eagerly, and we'll have more Rising right after this.